So should I just approve the minutes now then?
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
so
Okay.
now
So
we
Carol, you can go ahead and start the meeting now.
Yep, so I'll call the meeting to order, and just so Linda knows, we've got Amy Hawansky, Laura Robertson, Linda, John Marr, Amanda Matuzik, Chris Zimmerman, and myself, Carol Carey. So our first item of business is to approve the meeting minutes from last month, February. Does anyone have any comments on last month's meeting minutes before we approve them?
I have just a few.
Okay.
Page 2, line 42. She noted she agreed, since it no longer is a goal, it is a common practice now. So maybe a comma or a semicolon there in between goal and it.
Okay.
Same sort of idea. Line 44. Did I circle the right place? She didn't want to give up that idea, comma, she moved it to the ongoing responsibilities list. Maybe add, so there's a comma, so maybe add just the word so. She didn't want to give up that idea, comma, so she moved it to the ongoing responsibilities list.
Okay.
And then one more, same page, page 2, line 65, 2/3 of the way down. Ms. Hawansky asked if they can schedule a walkabout on the property. I just thought it might be good to have a hyphen, walk hyphen about, because it's a described activity.
Where was that?
That is line 65. The first one. Now the other, later in that same sentence on that same line, walkabout is used again, but it's used as a verb. So we don't need the hyphen in that one.
Okay.
That is it for me.
Okay. Anyone else?
I didn't catch any.
Okay. So does somebody want to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from last month?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Amy. And who wants to second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the meeting minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. So the next privilege of the floor, Laura, I'm assuming no. Okay. New business. Do we want to do this on briefly, and then what time do you have to leave, Amy?
6:30.
Okay, I think we can get, if we can't, we'll jump out so that you can do your subcommittee meeting, but we'll start on the ongoing projects. And the first is Ace Hardware. Laura, is there anything outstanding with that? Because I sent you the comments that Amy and I had.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with all of them. I can bring the plan up. I generally thought it looked okay, but I'm also fine with the comments that you guys wanted to send. I just figured you guys could, I was going to put your email in, and then I was like, oh, well, if you guys just want to mention what, you want the comments to be, I'll send them over.
Okay.
Sure. There's a section along the side of the parking lot that goes up steeply, and that would be item number 13, which on this map is at the bottom to the right, the bottom right quadrant, item number 13. You see that there, you can't tell it from this map, but there's a grade change from where people are parking in those 6 or 7 spaces there. And then it goes up pretty severely to this strip of land going from left to right. So when we were there physically seeing it, we thought, oh my God, this is such a great stretch. Wide enough, big enough to put a long, diverse hedgerow of shrubs that would be important for pollinators. But Carol and I talked, and we thought, to make it easier, we don't have to require the diversity, let them pick one type of shrub and plant and run it down the whole way. They could also zigzag it or cluster it. What they had proposed is 3 flowering lilacs, but in tree form. So tree form, that's the word they're using is tree. And then also in the picture they submitted was tree form. So tree form is when there's just one straight trunk, and then the poof comes out at the top. And sometimes that's done by grafting. Weeping cherries are done that way. sometimes it's done just by simply cutting off the bottom branches and leaving the poof on top. That's how Rose of Sharon's are done. So in this case, my opinion was it was a little sparse. Just having 3 of these smaller formal looking items was a little sparse for that area, and also didn't achieve our ultimate goal, which was to provide this big area for pollinators and also to screen the parking lot visually from the road. So Carol and I came up with 3 possible shrubs that they could use. So they could use lilacs, but we would want to see the multi-stem shrub form.
And we wanted to see like 12 to 15 of them versus just 3.
Right.
Because you could put a lot more in
More
that
of a mass planting.
just Mhm.
Yeah. And then we gave 2 other shrubs that they could choose from.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then we also had one other change. Everything else that we talked about during our site tour, they had indicated on here, which was looking good. The other one was this upper left-hand corner where we see item numeral 8. Approximately numeral 8 is where the sign is for the store. And then as you move from numeral 8 up to 6 and 7, and then up onto the sidewalk and over to 9, again, we get this really sharp incline there. We were looking to have in the area between 7 and 8, but north of it. So there's a bare spot kind of ringed on the, yes, thank you.
Yeah, there.
Ish, roughly. Always hard to tell, from overhead plans, always better to be on site to really get a sense of the area. The owners were concerned that if they put in what we requested, we had requested some cherry trees there. And this is based on past conversations that we had as a group of kind of keeping this corridor all the way from Mohawk Commons all the way through town, through that intersection of Van Antwerp and Balltown, where there's some cherry trees, coming over from the synagogue, even as far away as the synagogue on the other side of Union Ave, and then coming through the corridor of Balltown to the intersection of Van Antwerp and Balltown, where there's cherry trees, and then continuing that we wanted to have this unity of the main corridor. So we suggested some weeping cherries, small, not and Carol, we actually know what we could make that more clear by being clear that we want that it's okay to put the dwarf ones. We're not expecting the big 25-foot tall and 30-foot wide ones, but small dwarf weeping cherries to start to get this unity going. And the owners were a little bit afraid that by putting those trees there, and perhaps they thought that we meant the big ones, that it would block, as the cars were coming by, it would block the view from the road up to the store. I went over there. In my personal opinion, and you may disagree, I didn't see that would be a problem. They may have thought that we meant the big trees, and they may have misunderstood exactly where we meant for them to place it. But I think that there is room there for some weeping cherries. And so I think we should hold them to that. They've been so cooperative and so good about, all the other items on the plan that we requested.
Yeah, and along that whole upper side, we don't have the picture up anymore. They're putting all hydrangeas, so it was just more of the same, where if we put a couple more weeping cherries, and it's going to go down the hill to the bank, so I don't think it'll block the sign from what we're talking about.
Right.
And we just add a little bit of cluster. They already have one weeping cherry there.
Right. So we would say that they can remove, they don't have to be obligated to plant the 2 hydrangeas to the left of numeral 8, but in that above numeral 8 area, somewhere in there, they could add some weeping cherries, and we can work with them to select those so that they get the smaller kind, maybe 8 feet tall, not 30 feet tall.
And all the ones by 4 and 5, I believe, are all hydrangeas.
Yes.
So we just wanted something a little different. So
Yes.
So I think that was our only comments, Laura.
Mhm.
And we're fine with it. So
Oops.
Just a quick clarifying question, Laura. So what's triggered this design is the construction of the greenhouse. Is that what's triggered basically this project review?
It actually goes all the way back to Ace Hardware moving in. When the planning board allowed the site plan approval, they asked for the landscaping plan to be approved by the tree council. But the greenhouse was delayed by COVID because I guess they had a really hard time sourcing the glass, and they didn't want to do their main landscaping until they put the greenhouse in. But our jurisdiction on this plan it's quite old, actually. We've been working with them on and off for quite some time. But I do think that this spring is when they really will dive into the landscaping and update it.
Yeah, I think it's going to look great. I guess I just note that I think this property is going to look really nice, but then we look at the remaining portions of the corridor and, we have 2 banks, a gas station, an empty lawn. And so it's going to be an interesting view shed.
Well, one step at a time. We'll start working on.
We'll start picking them off like dominoes.
Baby steps.
So, because one of the things we had talked about, Laura, was planting those elms, but we need the bank to help purchase those along that one area.
Right. Yep. We did
Mhm.
finally let that one go on Ace Hardware, and we'll work with the bank and see what we can do with them to get more trees planted along the road there.
Yeah, I guess a comprehensive plan would be ideal so that things aren't piecemeal.
And
Exactly.
Chris, your point will also come up again when I do my report, because I used your computer overhead tree canopy thing, and that section right in front of the bank shows up as red there, and at the connection of River Road and Balltown, that's also comes up as red. Then there's not a lot of places theoretically to plant trees. There's a lot of concrete, asphalt, there's sidewalks, there's no little space between the sidewalk and the street. So there's a restricted area to plant trees, but there is space at that bank, in the front, along the left, and in the back, the whole area around the bank. So I think we could, develop a conversation with them to see if they would work with us for that whole section.
Yeah, I guess I would just think a more comprehensive plan for the corridor, like we talked about at some point, would be advantageous to kind of carry that theme across. If you take a look at the gas stations right now, I mean, it's
Agreed.
not ideal.
Wish
So-
we had a tree council when the Stewarts got remodeled.
Right.
Yeah.
That was an excellent point.
And you're totally right, because I went there yesterday or the day before, and I'll talk about that in a second. Where are we going to put them at? There's no section. There's no place to put them at the Stewarts. There's no little strips, and it's just this tree desert, and we can't fix it as it is right now. There's no place to fix it, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think some of the bricks could come up, but that's part of a bigger kind of discussion.
Yeah, for some reason, instead of grass, they did decorative bricks, which now look,
Mhm.
really bad.
Yeah. So maybe that's for further. So I'm excited. I think you guys have done a great job working with the hardware store, and it's really going to be a model for this area.
Well, I'll tell them that. That'll probably help
Yeah,
the last
I
couple
think-
lilacs planted.
I hope that'll help. Yeah. Okay, so the next one is the Eastern Parkway one, Laura.
That one's just still ongoing because we don't have the final plan, but I still haven't gotten an updated plan from them.
Okay.
So the last bit of paper in your packet is the River's Ledge. And I don't consider this to be an updated landscaping plan from River's Ledge in any way.
Okay.
I popped it on there because I told him we were having a tree council meeting and could he send us what he had. That's what he has. Like, I'm still expecting, and they know, a plan like we saw before that has the whole site with the plant lists all, detailed with how much they're planting.
Thank you. Yes.
I think this really only illustrates that they do have a 2-point plan now. But
Well,
I was looking a 2-house plan.
they're
but I was
repeating a lot of stuff still.
They're changing where
That's-
they're planting it, but
Yeah, that
like, they
doesn't-
still have
in
a lot
my
of
mind-
lilies. They still have a lot of boxwood. Yeah.
Daylilies, hydrangeas are the same. The 9 bark is the same. I had to blow this up on my like huge screen and get really tight in there to even read the handwriting of what was listed.
It's tough to read.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's kind of,
What's their time frame, Laura? When is this supposed to be finalized? Because we've been working on this one for a
Well,
long time.
I mean, they really can't start their planting plan until we approve it. But obviously, our next meeting is going to be early April. You would think that they would really get into planting like the end of April, May, I would think. I mean, maybe they'd wait until May. Maybe May. But it's really coming down the line, which is why I've been harassing them a little bit, because I don't want them to get ahead of it and start ordering plants and stuff when we still have a lot of comments to make. So I have passed that on to them, but this is what they had sent to me just for this meeting. I mean,
And also because it's so big, we need a little bit of time.
yes, I mean, I only got
Yeah.
it like yesterday. Yeah, so you guys, yeah,
yeah,
would need some time to look
right.
it over as well.
And also we were promised a walk around. So
Yeah, we talked about that. He's willing to do a walkabout at any point, and you could do it now. We talked about this before. I mean, like when there's a lot of snow and stuff, you might want to wait until at least you can see like the grass, but they don't really have grass, so it probably doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
Laura, was I reading it right? The backs of both buildings have all boxwoods, and
Well,
they're the same boxwoods?
it's
Yeah.
not all boxwoods. One of them is
there's also 9 bark.
a summer wine 9 bark, yeah. But
Okay.
I was reading our minutes obviously from last meeting, and we had concerns about boxwood. So I mean, I can just like generally email him back and be like, thank you. We still need what we talked about before. And by the way, like you're reusing a lot of species across these two buildings, and some of them are maybe susceptible to some.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
think-
not just these 2 buildings, remember. I mean, if it was just this one building and it had 11 boxwoods, okay. But then they keep repeating the boxwoods around the building, and then that whole unit is going to be repeated again, correct, Laura? It's not
Right.
just
So they have
it's multiple cookie imprints of this.
16 buildings, and they're dividing them into 2 groups of building plantings. And then you have the site plantings. So these are just the foundation plantings. Then you have the site plantings. These don't have a lot of trees because they're foundation plantings. The site plantings has a lot more trees. But these are where you see those like 400 boxwood orders,
Yeah.
which is why we got concerned, because they're like, if you're planting 400 boxwoods in an area, like,
Mhm.
And we're missing out on that pollinator pathway option. When you have fewer flower sources, fewer sources for nectar and pollen, you have what's considered sometimes to be a what's called a sterile environment. So a manicured perfect lawn is considered a sterile environment for pollinators anyway. There's such opportunity here, such opportunity. I would just hate to see us
Well-
miss that opportunity.
Well, and the other thing is, as we mentioned last month, was the residents across the river were very upset that there were no conifers or anything to block the line of sight to this project, and particularly, I guess, with the headlights they said are shining across the river into their homes. So I think we do need to, as much as possible, take that into consideration. And I haven't seen that we have that many conifers where, that I think we should increase that where we can.
yeah, that wouldn't be on the foundation plan. That's on
Right.
the other plan. But yes, we definitely want to increase those plantings as well.
Right. But yeah, so I just don't know the timing of when we're approving what, but I
It sort
think
of
that's-
depends on when they submit it. But at some point, they're going to run up into a deadline, and then it's going to be like emergency tree council meetings, which is annoying.
Yeah.
Mhm.
On a -6 day, let's hope.
Yeah.
not.
Well, I might be mostly done with those.
Done. Yeah.
I shouldn't jinx us.
They address the sediment and erosion control issues. Is this the same plan, I assume? Remember we were out there last time, and then there was sediment traveling across the bike path due to the way the wall was constructed.
They had addressed the sediment loads that we were seeing, and they put up new socks and they put up some swales. But they addressed the immediate needs. They weren't able to do all of it until this spring because they're going to put like wings and stuff to direct the water. And some of that is asphalt work, and some of it like they would do when they're paving. So I think they were going to put some under drainage across some of the trails and stuff like that. So they just about half, I would say. And then they have a decent amount of work that they still have to do in the spring for water, because there's just more water coming through that park than they thought there was going to be.
That's good enough. Thanks for the update.
Okay, anything else on River's Ledge? Yep, Amy?
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
When we're done with River's Ledge, I would like to bring up something about one that we did last year, if that's okay.
Okay, and anything else on River's Ledge then? Okay, then Amy, what did you want to bring up?
You know, when you come down, you know where the UPS store is and the co-op and then Lang's, that building, that strip mall? On the back side of it, remember we had to approve some plantings there to block lights? I was doing this other project I want to tell you about, and I drove past there the other day, and I think we may want to go review the actual physical installation of that. I don't know that they did what we said, but I can't be sure unless it was getting dark and I was in the car. So I think we should take the agreement and go over and stand there and see if it's actually what we said.
I think I did go over there like at the beginning of the installation, and I think there are the right amount of like trees, but what is probably off throwing is then she added a bunch of things that we didn't specify in different places, like
Okay, that may be it.
like giant sunflowers and all kinds of things that
Well, there's some, what looks like, again, I was in the car, could either be arborvitae or junipers, but they're, you know, this big, they're little knee-high things, and a couple feet away from what looks like maybe is a crabapple. Again, I couldn't see from the car, but you know, it just wasn't even, it didn't.
Yeah, she planted actual apple trees, not crab apple trees. They're like Honeycrisp.
Okay.
But I mean, that's okay.
I remember, you know, I walk by there all the time, and I think that I had a similar reaction, Amy. I thought that the evergreens were supposed to be like 6 foot tall to block the parking.
Headlights.
Yeah, I remember them being like just enough to come up over the headlights of the car, but not so high that they would block the whole thing for safety reasons. And they're kind of spotted in it. That doesn't make sense. I'd like to examine it a little closer.
Could we pull that out, Laura? And
Yeah,
Amy?
I'll put that one. It's I think
Thank you so much.
2255 Crescent or somewhere in there. I know which one you guys are talking about. It wasn't exact. I went over there a couple times when she was planting, like to me, like her swapping real apples for crab apples. I mean, okay.
Kind of neat.
Yeah, I'll have to double check the evergreens and stuff like that.
And Laura, could you just give us a brief update on Shannon Boulevard? What's happening there?
So Shannon Boulevard really got moved into the legal department's world. You know, we did what we could, you know, to be flexible, but hold fast to our approvals. I think we allowed a couple more trees to go down in order to accommodate their homes, but they just kept wanting to take more down. And they had multiple notice and orders from my department, and it's really just moved into the legal world. They're negotiating with the lawyer. She's assessing fines or penalties and things like that. You know, if she needs me to send out a building inspector, I am, but that has really moved into the legal world.
Okay, because it did look like more trees came down than what we had marked.
More trees did come down than what we had marked. And I have, you know, assessed the trees that had come down to the best of my ability and written up notice and orders and put them all into the legal department's world.
Mhm. Topic for another meeting, but I was wondering if there's a way, because we mark trees and then they're gone and we can't really, if there's a way that we can, I don't know, put a tracker or something on them, like those little Amazon trackers, and this tree is being moved.
Yeah.
Carol,
We
an
GPS'd them
amazing
before. You can
idea.
definitely GPS them.
Well, I actually, now it's going to be public. I was actually thinking of a way, you know how you get in your cats or in your body a chip?
A microchip.
Like we put a microchip into trees, and then when, you know how sometimes there's literal theft of trees, right? People will come and cut the tree and haul off with it, and you wake up in the morning and your hardwood tree is gone. You can actually track it that way.
Well, yeah, just because you and I, Laura, were out there in the dark that one night, but what we had marked, and then when I come back, because I walk that, every day on my walking route, and I'm like, more trees came down than what I thought we had saved more than what was there. So
You could,
on that, they definitely did. And on that property, we have pretty good documentation, and we have photographs. So it's not difficult to prove that trees beyond what the tree council, trees that the tree council had marked to be saved came down.
Mhm.
That's really why it's in the legal world now, is because like we talked about what our penalties are in the code. The legal department, I think, is negotiating whether or not it goes to court or whether or not they negotiate, penalties with them, however they want to do that.
okay.
If we want to have any continued influence on future developers, or hopefully we don't lose this.
Agreed. Yeah. And I feel like hopefully we've passed on that. Yeah, this is a precedence that we want to be really careful with, because or we update the code,
Mhm.
but there needs to be penalties when trees beyond what are marked to be taken down, take down. Like we get calls every day about people who are upset with trees coming down on other people's properties, and a lot of them we don't have control over. But in this particular instance, the clearing limits were pretty insignificant to the subdivision review. So
along the same lines, the project, just trying to get a status update on the project that's on River Road across from Blotnick Park.
Celts, yeah.
Just trying to get a sense of we walk that property in detail and just trying to get a better sense of how the kind of clearing limits, I don't know. I guess just looking at it, some of the kind of clearing limits were a little tighter to the wetlands than I would have suspected. So that's very subjective, but I don't know. It just seemed the clearing limits going straight up to the wetlands, and there's no buffer zone. So I thought
what's marked and Celts is not the buffer. What's marked on Celts is the 25-foot buffer. Okay. So they're clearing up to the 25 feet, which
that is.
Yeah, I mean, it always looks bad when they're clearing, but I think that they haven't done a terrible job. Like we had them keep they kept that little grove of hemlocks right along the clearing limits that we asked them to. But I think you'll see when those buildings go in that they're right up to the 25-foot buffer on those wetlands on a lot of the lots to be able to fit the buildings. So
yeah, so I guess those buffers were delineated by a consultant So I was just wondering because it looked like some of the clearing limits were right up to some wetland vegetation, but if it's in accordance with the delineated areas by the contractor in specifications with the Army Corps of Engineers, then I think that's great. Super.
Yeah, I mean, that one was checked by the Army Corps of Engineers, and I think they did have to delineate those twice because they expired. So,
okay.
And Laura, sorry, we're doing all these updates, but could you give us a real quick update on the Van Antwerp one?
Yeah, I can. But I do agree with Chris. And I don't know if it's facultative or obligate, but there seems to be a whole lot more wetlands on that property if you just look at the species, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I'm driving by at 40 miles per hour and I'm like, that seems a little,
Yeah.
That's why I brought it up, since we were doing this kind of, you're kind enough to give us a project update and review.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Van Antwerp, they're still working on the final, so Van Antwerp Hilltop, they're putting in a water line there. That was your question, right, Carol?
No, didn't one go to court, or,
Yeah, that's the Van Antwerp Hilltop one.
oh, okay,
Louis
okay.
Z. Yeah, the one we lost. Because well, anyway, that one still hasn't been cleared, but they're supposed to be saving the bigger trees in the back, but when that one gets cleared, all the vegetation in the front is going, like the forsythias and all of that stuff.
So that
Really?
is going forward. For some reason, I thought that had been overturned.
No, that one the town lost in court and didn't appeal.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt, guys. I have to sign off.
Okay.
Mimi.
Thanks,
Hi, Amanda.
Amanda.
Thanks. See ya later.
Thank you. So, Laura, thank you for all these updates.
They're
This
kind
has
of
just been
depressing
helpful.
updates. Yeah.
Well, it's just, we work on them, and then, it's sometimes they drop off for a while, and it's just nice to hear, where we stand on these. So thank you.
So, Laura, I just want to make sure I clear what you just said. The one there on Van Antwerp, that they're going to clear all the vegetation in the front of the house. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, we were able to save the trees in the back, like the really big, I think like there's a couple really big black walnuts and a catalpa or something.
Oh, that's going to be a huge change.
It's going to be a huge change. There's some really big ones in the back that the tree council flagged. They actually marked all the big trees on their plans.
Yeah.
So like they've bubbled out the ones that have to stay on their plans. But like that huge patch of like forsythia and some of the littler trees and stuff in the front, like all of that will be cleared when they do go to build those buildings.
The really big trees that arch over the road, those are going down too?
Well, there's 2 trees at the front that we asked them to build the driveway around. So the driveway is supposed to go through 2 little trees that when we did a walkabout, and that's shown on the plans. So there's 2 littler trees that are supposed to stay, and then they are supposed to plant some street trees. Although the majority of those may end up on the McGovern side. Just because there's more room to plant them over there. But and they don't want to interfere with the 2 that are existing with the driveway. But I do think it'll be impactful when that site is cleared, because they also have to do a little bit on the corner for some stormwater management. It's not ideal, but they are going to save as many of the big trees as possible. There's also like a mulberry tree or something that I would normally be like, man, that tree looks half dead, but they actually want to keep it because they want the mulberries. So.
Okay. Well, thanks, Laura.
Yeah.
Thanks for the updates. So we can move on to the reports. And Amy, I know you said you wanted to go first. So the tree planting, do you want to?
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
So at this meeting, I was going to ask my cohorts, Daryl and Paul, how they wanted to proceed for our subcommittee, tree planting subcommittee. So I'll just, I'll email them directly, seeing how we want to format the subcommittee for this year. And also for Arbor Day, I purchased 400 seeds, 100 of 4 different types. They either come in sets of 10 or 100. So that's why I got so many. And this we can have a planting seed project for when they come into the town hall, and we have the little table set up and they put their seed into, the little pot with the soil. So I got sycamore, honey locust, golden rain tree, and sourwood. So some common and some uncommon. Most of them are easy. A couple of them require a little bit of abrasion. So we'll have files like we did in previous years, or some sandpaper, and that will abrade the coat so that there'll be a nick in the coat and then the water can get in. And I think that'll be super fun. And I think it will be a continued thing if we each year we try to do this seed project in addition to just handing them the little seedlings. And then I'm trying to select a neighborhood for the tree planting project this year. So thank you to Chris and everybody who worked on that overhead tree canopy project, because it's awesome, because now I've been using it. So I looked at the whole map and I hand wrote out 4 pages of streets that were red. So streets that didn't have enough tree canopy. Now we always have to look at this realistically and scientifically, in that it's better to actually be on the street and interpret what can we do here based on the computer info, right? So I started going to all the red streets and we'll do a neighborhood at a time. All right, it's correct. This street is red because it's danger, it doesn't have enough trees, but one of the reasons is there's a huge ditch on the side and there's no place to plant it, or there's a big parking lot and where are we going to plant it, or lots of wires, so we have to put little trees. So sometimes just because a street is red or could use trees doesn't mean we have the physical ability to put them there. So we're facing that. Based on this information, I have been making up a chart, and the chart lists the street, the section of the street, if it applies. You know, a long street like Balltown, we might have areas that are fine and then other areas that are not fine. And then how many trees I think might possibly fit there. Is it 5 or is it 50? And then eventually I can do a rating system of what sections of those red streets and some orange streets, which sections are a higher priority, and or which ones can we actually achieve. So for example, Zenner Road, we could plant something like 150 trees, but a whole bunch of them are in front of the school, and then a whole bunch of them would ring around a parking lot. So we would have to talk about, would that be a good use of our trees, or are there other neighborhoods that would benefit more? So I wanted to let you know, I just started this project. I've gone out a few times, and thank you to my husband. He's been helping me. So he drives and I go faster, slower, faster, and I count the trees as we go. A lot of the neighborhoods are like that mid-range development neighborhood. You know, it's the house has been there 10 years, but they just have the foundation plantings. You know, they don't have any big trees. And so technically, space-wise, we could fit a whole bunch of trees along the road, but would the homeowners want the trees right in front of the house? We found in the past that a lot of homeowners don't like that. They don't like the blocking. They want to have the trees at the corners of the house. So anyway, thank you for doing all that computer work, because now we're able to use that for our next project. And hopefully after I assess all of the red and orange streets, we'll be able to have a way to fairly pick, because I also don't want to have us be accused of bias. Oh, we're only doing this neighborhood because, you know, oh, I live in that neighborhood and I picked that neighborhood, or this is our favorite park, so we only do this park. I think this will be an objective way to pick what neighborhoods could benefit from the trees. So if you have any input at all, you know, on this, let me know. And as I gather info, you know, I'll be able to do a complete packet and send it to you when it's all done.
As one of the astronomy instructors at Union College, I need to mention, you talk about the parking lot at the end of Zenner Road. At the very far end, you'll notice there's like 5 piers. You take students out there and put telescopes on those piers.
Oh.
So if you put some trees right there, it'll block the view of the sky.
Okay, that's the info I need. Yes, yes, okay. Perfect.
Yeah, that's a park too. So, you know, it's a different land use. It's not a street tree area. It's a town park, and there's you know, mentioned this before, the town park plan. So coming up with that plan, what's the plans? The consistent, cohesive plan for all our parks.
Plus, it's a very interesting street because as we're entering, we have that kind of medical building on the right. Whole bunch of trees could go there. There's plenty of room, plenty of space. And then as we get farther, then we get the school. So, you know, different use. And then in the back is the park. So we've got 3 different uses here. So, you know, we'd have to really address how we would handle that area.
One of the data sets, Amy, that I think you've been using is the work that Steve had done.
Thank you,
Right.
Steve.
So I also posted, I don't know if I could share this really quickly just to show you, but it's in the chat. It's the tree equity scores. And so what's helpful about this information is it actually sets a threshold. So it just might be another data set to check. I'm going to go ahead and I think I can share my screen.
Okay, good point. Thank you. I'll
Let's
look
see
at
here.
that.
Select window or screen. I'm not super familiar with.
You can do either. If you do your entire screen, there you go.
Can you
Mhm.
see this? So this
It's
is
good
a
enough, yeah.
really similar data set to what Steve had used. So this is the canopy cover, but then it brings in other, data sets in regards to the demographics within these census blocks.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of helpful in regards to your comment about like how do we decide which neighborhoods. But if you zoom into Niskayuna, the census blocks are pretty large, and so these are the two areas that kind of jumped out to me. And so this is the the center of town right here. This is Niskayuna High School, yeah. So that might be helpful. I was kind of surprised, like this area had the lowest tree canopy cover of our entire town, where this kind of
It's funny that
You bring up a really, really good point here, and this is going to definitely overlap because some of the barest areas, one is around the school, the Commons, Mohawk Commons, ShopRite Plaza, and Hillcrest Apartments, and these are all areas where I don't know. Do we have any input? Can we influence trees being put inside those areas or not? Because those are a lot of the bare sections.
right. So it sounds like, the resolution of the data, how Steve, I think, summarized the information is a little finer scale than this is those bigger census blocks. But it sounds like from what you just said, they overlap nicely, and which, gives us two pieces of information then when kind of talking about, where priorities might be. So that's great.
Thank you so much for showing me that. And I'm going to look at that. And there's one other interesting phenomenon too, which is, again, look at the data, but then be in the place and see what the data means. Because a lot of times it'll say, hey, there's no town trees here, which there aren't because they're not within the X number of feet off the center line. However, it had a lot of trees because people had a lot further back on their properties. And
Right.
So, and those trees also possibly could make it more difficult to add street trees because they were already taking up airspace.
Mhm.
And then in other sections, it said, oh yeah, it's fine. We have street trees, but it was just the street trees. There was nothing beyond. So we want to look at both sides of the coin there when we're deciding where to put stuff, I think.
Right. Yeah, I think there's no substitute for a comprehensive street tree inventory.
Yeah.
So this is the remote sensing data was the best, which was great that Steve had done that, which is super powerful.
So
that's great.
That's it from me, and I will continue to work on that, and then hopefully that will allow us to pick. And then I won't have to do it again, hopefully, right? Because then each year we could know our priorities. Here's the next 5 neighborhoods that we want to do over the next 5 years.
Mhm. Great.
So I'm going to leave, and thank you so much. If anybody has any comments or anything, just, contact me, and I'm happy to include it in the kind of research that I'm doing.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
a lot of hard work. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes,
you, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, next is the public outreach. We had a meeting last night, and we had another meeting earlier between our last tree council meeting. Anyways, we've decided on Arbor Day. we are going to do an in-person event versus a drive-through, like we've done the last couple of years. It's going to be April 23rd at the Niskuna Town Hall, and we've reserved both the outside and the inside just in case of inclement weather. We'll be able to go inside from 11 to 1 p.m. And so we're starting to work on the booths. And Chris, I sent you an email today about perhaps the Nature Conservancy having a booth again like they did. So it's going to be more similar to what we did at Blatnick Park a few years ago, where we'll have various booths. And ones that we are thinking of are the Albany Pine Bush, the Pollinator Garden, again, the Monarch Butterfly Project, the Environmental Clearinghouse Ecos, an invasive species booth, the Nature Conservancy, the pesticide-free booth, Amy's tree seed activity, and I think those are some of the main ones. Along with if the Girl Scouts want to have an activity for kids like we've done in the past. And then also, we're coordinating with the Niskuna High School. The high school students that have environmental clubs wanted to have tables at the event also to promote what they're doing. So that's the plan at the moment. And we've ordered trees. We've 250 trees, and this time we're going to be planting a tree that we'll be giving away, which will be a dogwood, because last year we planted the sycamore, and then a lot of people wanted a sycamore, and we didn't have a sycamore. So this time we've got I think 30 or 40 dogwood that we can hand out, and we'll be planting 1 or 2 dogwood trees. So that's kind of summary of what we're planning on doing for Arbor Day. Does anyone have any questions? I did send out the Excel spreadsheet right before this call tonight, kind of summarizing our meeting from last night. So
I want to put an event on the webpage, but I'm not sure I have all the information of what we want to say.
Yeah. Why don't we wait a little bit? Right now, we've sent out to these booths, but we haven't heard back from a single.
Okay.
I just sent it out today, so
Okay.
I'm hoping that they will come. And Chris, do you think can you reach out to the Nature Conservancy and see if?
Yeah, I sent an email to Paul. I don't know. We usually don't do booths like this. I think this isn't something we usually do, but with Leishakil being in town, there might be, there might be benefit, but yeah, it's not something we usually do. We don't really do booths, but
Yeah, I know you did it a couple of years ago because of the Leishakil, and
Right.
So maybe some.
so I sent a email to Paul and see what he says, and we'll see what he thinks if he can make it. You probably, when you schedule the date, you're probably aware of this. That is the Saturday right after spring break, so. So there might be people that are out of town. We might actually be out of town. So
We don't have a choice on it though.
Yeah, because we have to pick up the trees on that day.
Okay.
That's how we get those trees from the Saratoga Soil and Water Conservation. It's only on the 22nd that you can pick them up, and so we have to.
are they bare root seedlings?
What's that?
Bare root. Yeah, they are.
I mean, you could store. I mean, you could, if they're stored in a cool place, a cool, moist place, you could probably hold them over for a week. But, or you could even ask the Saratoga Tree Nursery to hold them for us or something like that. I don't know. I'm just, FYI. So
Yeah.
I might be out of town, and so might others. But you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, that seemed to be the best for right now, and so we'll go with it and see what happens. We kind of live and learn each year.
That's
Each
right.
year it's been increasing tremendously. So
Mhm. Yeah. There's a lot of people in town, and a lot of people don't go out of town. So yeah,
So
great.
yeah, so that's that. And then I guess the last one, Chris, is you with the tree inventory, tree master plan.
Yeah, I don't have any updates. I guess I am wondering about how we're going to finish this, the plan. And so I think that, I agreed to summarize the inventory data, which I can still do, but kind of beyond that, I think that we should, take a look at the plan and think about the minimum viable product. I know that we did a big meeting, was it almost a year ago now, and took a lot of notes, but I don't even know where those notes are now. So I think we should look at it as minimum viable product. What can we live with to get it done and put out a draft? That's kind of my take on it. Way back when, we actually had a fairly sizable discussion, Laura, right? And I don't think, Carol, you weren't on the committee at that point, but there was a pretty robust discussion about like what we could do as a committee versus what the contractor should do. And that was what some of my concerns, is that the committee is just too busy to write anything, really, but certainly everybody has different bandwidths and how much time they can put in, but I just don't have the time beyond what I committed to. So.
Chris, when you reach out to Paul on the booth, sorry, this goes back to what we were just, but you could mention to him the new trails in the Leishakill. Like, it might be a really good way to
Promote that.
the South Leishakill trails.
Yeah, I don't know where Paul stands on that. Have you guys figured out the parking?
No, he's really worried about the parking.
Yeah,
But I mean,
we've had a lot of complaints at some of our other preserves where there isn't sufficient parking, and neighbors have gotten really upset with us. So it definitely, I'm not speaking as a official representative, but that is a concern.
yeah, because you really can't fit very many spots on Route 7 there, which may be why they're keeping the trails a little quieter. But really cool that there's new trails out there.
So can you go in from Route 7 and
Yeah, there's only space for how many cars, Laura? So
but we could make it bigger if we wanted to, but it probably wouldn't take more than 10.
So that's kind of outside of my purview, but yeah, that is a concern. So one of our Christmas preserve, where we have a waterfall, it's consistently an issue. We expanded the parking lot there, and people still park on the road on super busy days. So you get people trying to park in that subdivision or even along Route 7, which would be crazy. But
people will park in crazy places, though.
I guess we'll have to cut down some trees to get the parking lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's yeah.
Kind of along similar lines, but I'm thinking back to the Arbor Day event. We do have some other areas like the Indian Kill, in the area, and even along the bike path of Mohawk Hudson. I wonder if I don't know who the contacts would be, but
maybe we didn't think about this, Carol, but maybe we should ask Nick from the soil.
I was thinking of that. I think he would be great to have a booth from Schenectady County.
Because he's very helpful. He could be like, what's wrong with my plant?
Oh, you mean with our plan?
No,
plant.
Remember how we were saying we didn't, because I know Amy really wants to do her seeds. Like Nick knows so much about everything.
Yeah, we were going to have a booth. What's wrong with my tree? But we need somebody who's knowledgeable, who can, tell them what's wrong with the tree based on it. And Amy had said she's done that in the past, but I don't feel comfortable.
She's really happy with her seed booth. I think we should reach out to Nick and see if he would come.
Okay.
He could do whatever he wanted, but
yeah, I'll reach out to Nick. So
I guess in regards to the tree master plan, I don't know what you guys think. Maybe we need just to have a separate discussion about that, review where things are at, and figure out what our plan is forward.
Yeah, and I saw that the Arbor Day Foundation has put out a tree master plan kind of not template, but I just wanted to take a look at that and see, if there's anything in there that we should be considering, because I think they did it to help communities like us. So,
Yeah, so I think, maybe taking a quick look at that, but then as I, indicated, just trying to finish it, because I'm sure the contractor, it's been a while, and so I think, so I don't know, I think if it's nagging at me and I just don't have much bandwidth. I'm just too busy with work and personal stuff, and so it just
Mhm.
I also don't have a whole lot of bandwidth either, which is why I think it's lingered, but we could see if we could schedule a meeting maybe like later in the month, and I could put together the materials and see if I can kind of come up with where we're at and what the finish line is.
I think that'd be
Mhm.
great. So, I mean,
Yeah.
can you set something up, Laura, then? Can you take that?
Yeah. I'm gonna see if Linda can help me. Linda.
That would be great. We would so appreciate that, Linda, if you would coordinate that for us. And like I said, I will commit to doing the piece that I committed to. I didn't commit to writing the plan.
Nobody did. Like
Right.
I mean, we have a contractor too, and he does call me. We just need maybe I can just sit down with Linda and figure out what the pieces are, how close they are, and then we could have a meeting towards the end of the month on it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I think we had a pretty robust discussion about the goals and stuff, but like that's what I'm saying. To change and rewrite those things takes time, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
So great. So if you can set that meeting up, I greatly appreciate it, and I will see if I can pull some results together over the next couple, like in a month, to have that piece of it completed.
Okay.
Mhm.
Sounds good.
Super.
Great. Well, I think that is everything. Unless anybody else has anything they want to bring up. Otherwise, the people want to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, you guys.
Thank
We'll
you.
talk
Thanks,
soon.
Sarah.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Aye.